Well, hi folks, 17th of March now, and my heat treated onion sets have arrived, so it's time to get them planted. Some people might think it's a little bit early to plant them, but I've always done it as early as, you know, as soon as they've arrived. I've had them earlier than this before, and they always seem to do absolutely perfectly fine, because they're tough as old boots onions, so there's no need to, you know, to hang about. Just get them in as soon as you get them, as far as I'm concerned. Not saying that it's, you know, 100% correct, but like I said, I've never had any problems with them whatsoever. So I always get heat treated sets, because what's happened to these is these have been stored at a certain temperature. I think it's about 70 degrees Fahrenheit for about 3 months, and what that does is it apparently kills off the embryonic flower stem in the onion set. So then in theory they cannot possibly go to seed, or they can't bolt. And especially with red ones, as you know, if you plant red onions, if you get like some crazy weather in summer, like a drought or a really cold spell early on, that can shock them into sprouting. And then you can end up with a whole crop of, you know, with little seed heads coming up, which renders them pretty useless. But like I said, when you use heat treated ones, that's taken out of the equation generally. I'm not saying it's 100%, but last year I think I probably got about 4 bolters out of 120 onions. And the weather last year, as you know, was pretty up and down, ridiculous. So if they were going to go to seed, then they would have done. So yeah, that's why I grow heat treated onion sets, and I'll just show you how I'm going to plant them. I'm going to plant them a bit differently this year. I usually plant them 6 inches apart in between the bulbs, and a foot apart in rows, but this year I'm going to plant them closer. I'm going to plant them 4 inches apart, because I did a test last year, if you remember, where I planted them ridiculously close, about 2 inches apart each way, and I still got a really good crop of nice, like probably the size of a tangerine onion. And because I tend to get really big onions, I don't know what it is about this land, but they end up huge, you know, like 1/2 to 3/4 of a pound. I don't really want them that big. I want some smaller ones that'll store better. So I'm going to plant them a little bit closer. Hopefully that'll reduce the nutrients to each one, and we should get a smaller bulb. So I'll get on and get these planted, and I'll show you what I do. Couldn't be easier. So as I said, couldn't be easier. I've got 3 different varieties this year. There's an early cropping one, which are these, called Rumba. And we've got a main crop one, which is called Centurion. And then we've got the red ones, which I don't think there's a name on those. No, anyway. So what you do with these onion sets couldn't be easier. You've got like a blunt end and a pointy end. The pointy end's where the leaves grow out, and the blunt end, they might be able to see a little bit of root there. That's the bit that you push into the soil. And when I say push into the soil, I mean basically just push the onion set maybe halfway into the soil, that's all. And because these are going in every 4 inches, this is a 10-foot row. I should get 30 in this row. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's easy when it was 6 inches, it was just every 1/2 foot, but now I've got to add it, now I've got to count. So like I said, couldn't be easier. All I've done with this is just to put about 4 ounces of bloodfish and bone into the soil, and that should do it for the whole season really. Every 4 inches. So yeah, couldn't be easier. So we'll just get on and shove a few of these in. Well, there we go folks, that's 90 in now, in 3 1-foot rows, 3 10-foot rows. So I'm going to go even dafter now. I'm going to plant these 40 3 inches apart, so that'll be 40 in a row. And then with the 50 I've got left, I'm going to plant those in another square bit, as close as I dare, probably about 2 inches apart like I did last year. And then we can see how they all progress over the year. So we'll get on and plant this 40 in this row. Right folks, let's get this last 40 in before I go on to the silly one. So these are going to be the ridiculous spacing of 3 inches apart. But they should be alright, like I said, they'll just be smaller. So you get more of a crop per square foot this way. Overall, 21, 24, 27. Although the yield may be smaller, the actual bulbs, because there's so much more in the same area, the overall yield will be greater. I found that last year, so it's the way to do it, especially if you're short on space. Not that I'm short on space, but to be honest, I just want smaller onions. Where are we at now? It's hard work counting in threes when you're from Yorkshire. I think I've got about 40 odd left. So buy a pack from Marshall's and you get three lots of about 70 onions, all heat treated, for about £9 or something. So it probably works out about 3 or 4p an onion overall, which considering the price of everything today is pretty reasonable. Oh, I've lost me bulb. So we'll get these in and then we'll have a little look. And then we'll do the final idiotic one of the really close spaces. Sounds idiotic, but I did it last year and I got a really good result. So the last ones, like I said, couldn't be easier. This has only taken me about a quarter of an hour, and I've planted just in this bit 130 onions, so it's quite a good easy crop to do. Right, 3 to go and that'll be it. 1, 2, 3. So that's 130 onions in that, which is 1, 2, 3, 30 square feet, which is what? It's only about just over 3 square yards or 3 square meters, and there's 130 onions in. So we'll get on and do these silly ones now. Right then folks, just to finish all the rest of my onions off, these little ones, I'm going to plant these 2 inches apart, which sounds even more ridiculous, and 6 inches apart in the row. It looks like they're almost touching. Like I said, I did this last year and I was really astounded by the results. Got some really decent sized ones, about, like I said, tangerine size. So unless you want like giant ones, there's no point in planting them. Some people plant them a foot apart each way, but if I did that, it'd be ridiculous. So what we need. But this is getting a bit more ridiculous on the other side, I must admit. But like I said, I did try it last year and I was astounded by the results. It looks absolutely bonkers. I mean, I've got all these spare ones. I'm not going to grow 250 full-size ones, so I'd rather have a load of little ones as well, which was the thinking. So I thought, why not do it again? Oh, that's a bit of a stretch. Right, so 6 inches roughly. I'm not going to measure it out, as long as we're about in the same ballpark. Last time I did this last year, the pheasants decided to make a nest, so let's hope they don't do it this year. I do find this quite therapeutic actually. Mindless, mind-numbing. Pick one up, stick it in the ground, pick one up, stick it in the ground. So I'd like to leave a few spare, just in case I have a few misfires in the main bit. So once I do this second row, I'll keep the remaining few of these, just in case, like I said, there's a few that don't fire. So the last few. A few red ones. Keep these yellow ones. Don't know how many we've got in here. It's about 50 in this bit. In about 2 square feet. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 24. So 48 onions in about a square foot. So there you go, folks. That's this year's onion sets planted. We should have varying different sizes. So that's about it, folks. See you later.